Hey guys, in this lesson, I'm going to be talking about factoring using the distributive property. Now, in previous lessons, I've mentioned factoring and the distributive property, and I've explained those. So let's explain that once again. Factoring is when you have two numbers and you multiply those together to get a product. And the factors of those products are the numbers that you multiplied to get that product. So say, for instance, 2 times 3 is 6. 6 is the product, and the factors are 2 and 3. So basically, what numbers were multiplied by each other to get that product? Those are factors. And so today we're going to be factoring out numbers in order to solve equations using factoring in the distributive property. Now, when I say distributive property, what I also mean is when you're multiplying numbers, you may have a number that's multiplied by two numbers contained in the parentheses. And so we're going to distribute that number to multiple numbers. So I'll show you that in a second. So let's get started. So in order for you to get an understanding of the distributive property, we're going to kind of look at the inverse. So say, for instance, you have 2a multiplied by 6a plus 8 in parentheses. You automatically assume that this is multiplication when you have, say, a number and then another number in parentheses. So we have this 2a times 6a plus 8. The distributive property works as when we're multiplying the 2a by what's in parentheses, we're going to multiply 2a times 6a plus 2a times the 8. So we've basically distributed the 2a throughout the problem. So this answer is 2 times 6 is 12, a times a is a squared, and then we have plus 2 times 8 is 16a. So I've distributed this 2a in order to get my answer, which is 12a squared plus 16a. So now the inverse, which is what we're going to talk about today, factoring, is when I look at this answer, what can I pull out to show what is a common factor? So say, for instance, we're looking at the 12 and the 16. What two numbers or what numbers does 12 and 16 have in common? So you could say 6 times 2 is 12, or 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16, so the number that it has in common is a 4, so we can basically pull out a 4. And then when we look at the 12a squared and then the 16a, they both have a's in them. This one has two a's, a times a, which is a squared, and this one has 1a. So at most, we could pull out 1a from each side. So we're going to pull out an a. So that leaves us with 3, because 4 times 3 is 12. And we still have an a. A times a is a squared plus 4. So when we factor, meaning we're pulling out the numbers, that is the greatest common factor to be multiplied, this answer is 4a times 3a plus 4. Basically, I've pulled out the biggest number that you could pull out in order to simplify this problem. So that's what we're going to work on today. Hopefully, as I go on, it'll make more sense to you. So let's get started. Okay, so my first problem is going to be 12a squared plus 16a. And when you're reading, it may say factor completely. So how are we going to do that? You're going to look at the greatest common factor. So again, let's look at 12, 16. Greatest common factor is 4. We see that there's an a in both sides, at least one, so we'll pull out the a. So what we have left is 3a plus 4. So that's similar to what we did before, but I wanted to show you the inverse of that. So now we'll work on number 2. Okay, the next problem we'll work on is number 2. So number 2 states 18c d squared plus 12c squared times d plus 9cd. And remember, you're always going to write your problems down. You can't just look at a problem and expect to solve it. Keep all of this stuff in your head. The number one reason why people are intimidated by math and get problems wrong is because they don't write them down. You need to feel and touch each and every single problem. So we have 18cd squared plus 12c squared d plus 9cd. So now the first thing we're going to look at is if we're going to factor this, pull out the greatest common factor. So let's look at all of our numbers. We have 18, 12, and 3, and 9. What number, I pretty much gave the answer, what number is the greatest common factor that you could pull out of all of these? You have 6 times 3 is 18. You have 6 times 2 is 12, or 4 times 3 for 12, and then you have 3 times 3 for 9. So we can pull out a 3 at most for all of these numbers. Now, if we look at each section, we have a c here, we have a c squared here, and we have another c. So at most, we can pull out a c. Then let's look at our d's. We have a d squared, and we have a d and another d. So at most, we could pull out a d. So we factored out 3cd in this equation. Now let's talk about what we have left. So what we would have left is 6d, because 3 times 6 is 18. We pulled out our c, and then d times d is d squared. So we're left with 6d plus 4c, because we've already pulled out a c. We are left with 1c. We've already pulled out a d, and we're left with 4. So plus 4c. And then we've pulled out a 3cd, so we're just left with 3 here, because 3 times 3 is 9, and you still have your cd. So this is what we're calling factored out. So I hope that helps. Now there's another way to look at this. If you need to see something visual, what we could also do is take these individually to see what they have in common. So we have 18cd squared, we have 12c squared d, and we have 9cd. And basically what we're going to do is break these up into their greatest common factor. So let's do that. So with 18, you would have 2 times 2 times 2 so here's a situation where you can't continue to use 2, because 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. You will never have these numbers to be able to multiply in order to get to 18. So even though 2 is a factor, at some point you would just have to use 9. So let's erase that here. So you would have 2 times 3, which is 6 times 3. So 2 times 6 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18, times c times d times d. So there's your d squared, that's your c, and this is your 18. So with 12, we have 2 times 2, which is 8 times, so that's 2, 4, 8. Again, we can't continue to use 2's in order to get to this 12, because at some point we're going to have to use a 3. So I'm going to back it up. So we have 4. 2 times 2 is 4 times 3. And then we have 2 c's. So we have c times c. That gives us our c squared. And then we have d. And now this is a visual way of looking at how we factored it out if you couldn't understand what I did earlier. So here we have 3 times c times d. So now we're going to look at these and see what they all have in common. So what do all of these numbers have in common? So first we can have a 2 here, there's a 2 here, but there's no 2 here, so we can't use a 2. So we have a 3 here, a 3 here, and a 3 here. So that's 1. So there's your 3. Can we do another 3, pull out another 3? No, because this middle one doesn't have a 3, but this last one does. Okay, now let's go to C. Does everyone have a C? Yep, so we can do C. And then can we pull out another C on everyone? Nope. So let's go to our D's. Does everyone have a D? Yep. And can we pull out another D? Nope, not everyone has another D. So now what do we have in common? We have a 3, we have a C, and we have a D. Those are the greatest common factors. As you can see here, I pulled out 3CD. So this is another way that you could visually pull out the 3CD if you didn't understand what I did earlier. So that's 3CD, and then you're left with 6D plus 4C plus 3. Okay, I'm going to go back to number 1 and do it the same way so that you can get a visual understanding of it. So let's do that. Okay, so we're going to go back to number 1, which is 12a squared plus 16a. And I'm going to visually show you how we can pull out that greatest common factor. So we're looking at 12a squared, and we're looking at 16a. When we pull out the greatest common factors, we have 2 times 2, which is 4. So 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 3 is 12. And then we have our a squared, which is a times a. And now we have our 16. We could do 4 times 4, but that wouldn't be the least common factor. So we're going to say 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Times 2 is 16 times a. So now we're going to look at what's in common. So we have a 2 here. We have a 2 here. Can we pull out another 2 for both? Yep, pull out another 2 for both. Can we pull out any more 2s for both? Nope, that's it. So we've got this pair of 2s, this pair of 2s. So now let's go to 3s. Can we pull out a 3 for both? Nope. Can we pull out an A? Yep, we'll pull out an A for both. Can we pull out another A for both? Nope. So what we have here is 2 times 2 times A, or 4A. So that is what I could pull out, a 4A. And we're left with 3A plus 4. So I hope that helps. Hopefully that makes sense to be able to see that from a visual standpoint. And finally, we'll be able to go to number 3. And I'm going to show you something different where in some instances you have to group numbers together in order to get your answer. So let's take a look at number 3. Okay, for number 3, we have 4AB plus 8B plus 3A plus 6. Okay, first thing we're going to look at for factoring out information or factoring out a number, let's look at the numbers first. What do all these numbers have in common? They all don't have everything in common because 4 would have a 2 in common, the 8 would have a 2 in common, 6 would, but not the 3. So maybe we need to just look at part of the problem. So let's look at this 4AB plus 8B. So we would say we could pull out a 4 between the 4 and the 8. And then they also have a B in common. So we pull out the B. And what are you left with? A plus 2. Because 4B times A is 4AB. And then 4B times 2 is 8B. And now looking over here, what could we pull out for numbers? Pull out a 3. and we're left with just a plus 2. So look at this. Both have an a plus 2 in them. So now our answer is a plus 2. And then we could combine what's remaining here. So a plus 2 multiplied by 4b plus 3. And that's our answer as far as factoring. So sometimes you may have to group certain parts of the equation together to find out what the commonality is. And this is how this works. So I hope that helps. We'll continue to do more problems. Please send me your problems if you're still having misunderstandings. I can help you with that. If this has helped you, pass it along to someone else, and we'll see you in the next video.